Colleagues, I'd like to encourage you to take seats so that we can get with the program, if you don't mind. Apologies for being delayed. We have a number of people on the road trying to get here on time, so we delayed our program a bit to accommodate the travel requirements of our guests. But maybe before we start the proceedings, can I hand over to a representative of the ICC to give us a very important safety briefing for the venue itself? Maybe if I can hand over. Are you fine?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ryan. I'm with the ICC. I do the health and safety. In case of an emergency today, if the alarm goes off or anything else like that, we've never needed to, but the evacuation process you'll see on your right through these doors, and the assembly point is the large field where you came through. If you would all meet there in case of an emergency so that we can use the registry to make sure that everyone's out okay. Our facilities, ladies and gents, are at the back of the building. And your dinner and everything, or your lunch and everything else like that will be served on your right-hand side or your left-hand side. That's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Great. I'm not sure if the bathrooms were mentioned, but it's right behind you, through that corridor. You will find them on your right-hand side. Colleagues, maybe let me introduce myself. My name is Rowan Govender. I'm an executive manager at the AIDC Eastern Cape. And I'm very proud to welcome you to our third iteration of our Automotive Aftermarket Expo. And we really appreciate your time and effort to come to this event. It's been an event that we have established as a milestone calendar event here in the Eastern Cape. And it is a national event. Because we do have national representatives at the event. So we want to take this opportunity to really thank you for being part of this event and contributing to it. The program itself it's quite intense. We have congested it into a one-day event. But the idea behind it was that we create value for you as an attendee. It's also an opportunity for you to network and connect with other business owners and industry players and stakeholders, as you can see by the exhibition stands around the venue. The fundamental idea behind our Automotive Aftermarket Franchise Development Expo and Business to Business Indaba is to foster connections, share knowledge, and encourage business opportunities. So if you're an attendee today, that's largely your goals and objectives for today. We have created an environment where it facilitates and stimulates these objectives and goals so that you can benefit from it. If you need any support or assistance, there are AIDC Eastern Cape colleagues and the team that are around the venue. Please feel free to stop them and ask them for information or connect you with someone. They are more than willing to help you. Maybe to start the event also, let me welcome our delegates that are representing the province and industry. I would like to start with welcoming MEC Peters from the Department of Economic Development, Environmental Affairs and Tourism. I would like to welcome Ms. Mickey Mama, the Head of Department of Economic Development, Environmental Affairs and Tourism. I'd like to also welcome the Head of Department, Mr. Majeko, who's Centre Representative, Mr. Sitole, to represent Eastern Cape Provincial Treasury. I would like to also welcome Mr. Andile Fani, Head of Department of Transport, Eastern Cape. I would also like to welcome Mr. Lungelo Ntobongwana from the South African Bureau of Standards. I saw him walking in. I'm trying to look for him. But welcome, sir, Acting CEO of SABS. I would also like to welcome Ms. Maria de Amico, who is the franchising expert of Thomson Wilkes, and she's the chairperson of FASA. I would also like to welcome Mr. Pumzile Zutumani, who is our chairperson of AIDC Eastern Cape, and our CEO, Mr. Thabo Shinqani of AIDC Eastern Cape as well. We will introduce the panelists, and I will give them we've got two panels that are filled with incredible knowledge and experience, and I will give them their time and introductions just before the panel sessions. So, colleagues, I want to once again welcome you, and I would like to hand over to Mr. Shinqani to introduce the first speaker and the keynote speaker and make an opening remark.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Again, good morning. Thank you. My name is Thabo Shinqani. I work for the AIDC Eastern Cape. One of the things I was asked to do was to explain who we are. So we are a provincial government entity under the ECDC, a subsidiary of the ECDC, established in 2003. Most of us wouldn't know who we are because the entity has always been a very small entity supporting component suppliers based in Gqeberha for many years. It's only recently that we've taken it a level up. It is a provincial entity after all, and our board, led by Mr. Ztumani sitting in the front, given us a mandate to support the sector, to make sure that the Eastern Cape remains competitive as a host of the automotive industry in South Africa. Most of you also don't know that this province produces 46% of all the vehicles that are produced in South Africa, meaning Gauteng and KZN. We produce 46% of all vehicles. 56% of those vehicles are exported through our ports. East London, Port Elizabeth. Also, we've got the ITZs, obviously. who host the largest number of component suppliers who are also exporting components to other parts of the world. So those who don't stay in Gqeberha and East London would therefore not know what the value of the automotive industry is in their own areas. You may be the former Transkei, former Ciskei, Queenstown, where I come from. We wouldn't feel in touch the value of the automotive industry. Part of the mandate that we were given by our board was then to look at the entire value chain of the automotive sector. So you've got your OEMs, which is Mercedes-Benz, VW, SA, and them. You've got component suppliers who supply the OEMs with components where cars are assembled. You've got the retail space, which is where the SMMEs in the aftermarket and franchising are based, and retail stores, and so on. So when we were assessing this level of the value chain, we realized that the majority of the... My eyes are problematic. So can you please switch on the lights again, please? So most of you would know that maintenance of our provincial government costs us as a province on average 260 million rand spent. Question is, where does all that money go to? And that's the question we ask ourselves as an entity of government. How many of our SMMEs actually do maintain government fleet cars? If you go to NTT here in London, you will find probably about 15 mobile clinics, VW mobile clinics sitting there, waiting to be repaired. And this is not news to you, because you know this. And I'm just mentioning as one dealership that's got number of cars. There's a problem with police vehicles sitting in depots, some are stripped. And then you ask yourself, why would you not have service delivery? If all your cars are sitting waiting to be repaired all the time everywhere around the province, where does 260 million rand go? And I'm just talking government. The insurance industry spends about 6 million rand on maintenance alone. But where does this money go to? And why are our people not able to comply with the requirements to be able to get their hands on cars? So the assessment we've done with about 100 odd companies that we assessed and visited. I think some of these company owners are sitting in the room here. There's access to finance issues. But that access to finance to buy equipment. There's access to skills, training technicians, and so on. This is where we want to intervene. As the IITC Eastern Cape, we have half of the provincial government. We want to be able to provide access to finance so that SMMEs can purchase necessary equipment, toys, diagnostic tools. They should be able to code better. They should be able to access the market that the province has got in place. The 260 million spent amongst others. You must have also seen one of our service providers visiting your premise on health safety issues. These are the compliance requirements that you need to have to be able to participate in the government fund contracts. So the purpose of this particular event, which this is the third time we host now, is to solicit some more info around how can we better make sure that this maintenance and the spending reaches out to our provincial SMMEs in the Eastern Cape. I can tell you now, the West Bank contract is managed from outside the Eastern Cape. This is probably one of the biggest reasons why you would not have the majority of people in the Eastern Cape who are panel beaters or auto body repairers not being able to get their hands on the spend, because you can easily assume that because it's managed from Joburg, they don't know our panel beaters here, where they are and how do they comply. So therefore you won't be able to access the spend. So we've had discussions with Treasury, with the fleet guys, government fleet. All we want to do is to make sure that the money that is allocated by the province gets to be spent to SMMEs in the province. That's the whole purpose of us sitting around the table. So you would also know that this is not only dependent on us. We have to mobilize agreements with provincial treasury, with government fleet. So to assist the process, then, we gather like this. We've got our partners who are exhibiting, whom we would like you to interact with also. We've got ourselves here, making ourselves available to you to interact also going forward. So without further ado then, Rowan, I'll hand over to you. That was my short welcoming address. Thank you very much.
Thank you, CEO. You know, this morning when we arrived, prior to the program starting, excuse me, we have a gentleman that we worked with in another sector in the Eastern Cape economy. And it was quite a proud moment to see him access the auto sector and be able to sign a contract and legal agreements that are necessary to launch his business. It's a franchise business, but to see him being able to access the industry and to see the aftermarket program evolve to where it's at right now tells us that it's a strong possibility and strong opportunity for us to be able to impact your lives, and by impacting your lives, we will influence the economy of the entire Eastern Cape, not just the urban areas. And the Brains Trust around implementation of this program has been one of our executives at AIDC Eastern Cape, Mr. Kaya Njingolo. He's worked tirelessly with his team to go and find the businesses throughout the province and see and get to know you and get to understand your businesses and be able to understand the true challenges that you are experiencing. It's not a perfect exercise, but it's an exercise of getting to know the state of the businesses and the opportunities that do exist for your business to be able to grow in the Eastern Cape. Let me welcome Mr. Kaya Njingolo, who will talk about the AIDC Eastern Cape Automotive Aftermarket Program. Thank you.
Manbulisa, good morning. You know, when we were putting this event together, obviously we had to make provision for writing, inputs and, allocate roles and responsibilities to different people. And one of the roles was basically to ask the CEO to do what he did. And he stole the show because he gave a very good, comprehensive, background and explanation of what we do. But I thought I should actually take over from him because he made reference to why we are here. And the reason why we are here, it is because as the AIDC, we've actually crafted a responding program, which we call the Automotive Aftermarket Support Program. My name is Kaya Njingolo, as I was introduced by the program director. Let me also greet our honorables that are going to be making inputs, because part of us gathering here was to say, how do we then support our SMMEs in the aftermarket industry? And part of our mission is to collaborate with all value-adding partners in the space, which is why you would see in the program that there's inputs that are going to be made by experts in the space of franchising, as the theme of the event was titled as such. And I think I must also emphasize that, as it was indicated by the program director, that this is the 3rd edition of the event. Initially, yes, we were focusing on linking with existing big brands. But then we realized that we needed to define ourselves to the developmental approach of ensuring that we recognize your efforts of putting your businesses where they are. So the inputs that are actually going to be made today, we'll be talking to the mechanics of how can you get your business to that level of meeting the requirements that were explained by Mr. Shangwane. As I've indicated, I'm the head of the Aftermarket Support Program, which is a program that is basically designed to support and assist small, medium, and micro enterprises in the Eastern Cape. We are very much cognizant of the fact that Indima and Idlala, the role that we are playing is contributing to the growth of the economy of the Eastern Cape. You are the ones that are actually creating jobs in the local space. And we also take cognizance of the fact that from where you are actually operating from, you are faced with compliance issues that relate to bylaws, which is why today we are also having Salga to come and share with us, how are we going to create a conducive environment to support your ventures. I think we also need to emphasize that our program is focused, prioritizes the historically disadvantaged SMMEs, because they are the ones that have actually been disadvantaged in terms of access to finance, in terms of access to capacity building interventions, and also in terms of access to markets, as it was explained by Mr. Shangwane. So basically, our program objectives are to empower the aftermarket SMMEs. We also are focusing on facilitating capacity building and training programs that should actually assist you to meet the industry requirements. We've also observed, obviously, through our gap analysis, that one of the areas that needed attention was compliance with occupational health and safety. We know the types of businesses that we are running. At local government, they are considered as obnoxious businesses. And it is also a requirement, from various markets that you need to make sure that you operate in a manner that is going to ensure that you operate your business in a very safe and healthy manner. I won't dwell much into issues of markets because Mr. Shangwane has actually indicated that is work in progress, that is attempting to say how can we get our SMMEs in the Eastern Cape to benefit from this money that was actually, the market that has actually been indicated. So we're working very closely with the Department of Treasury and also Economic Development and Transport to make sure that as ORT 46 moves closer to its end of life, we take advantage of the opportunities that should actually benefit our SMMEs. Let me just share with you briefly that we have specific interventions that our department is focusing on. And I'm sure with the objectives that I've actually shared, you would have heard that there was reference to a capacity building. That's one dedicated program. The second one is actually this one that has actually brought us together here, which is the Aftermarket Franchise Expo B2B Indaba. Thirdly, we also continue to create awareness because we've observed as we interact with various stakeholders within the province that our aftermarket, automotive aftermarket SMMEs, they get lost into general SMME development. So our closer collaboration with Omasipala and other business formations within the province, we continue to engage with them to show the importance of the aftermarket SMMEs. So we have a very comprehensive after awareness creation program. We have also observed places where you are actually operating from. There are challenges relating to infrastructure. That then led us to conceptualize an intervention that will say, how do we provide an infrastructure that will assist you to operate from a better environment. By that I'm referring to what we call township automotive hubs. This is a program that we're working very closely with Nomasipala to make sure that we either identify umhlaba, sakhe indawo apho our SMMEs are actually going to be operating from. We have, through our gap analysis, we've actually observed that our SMMEs don't have the right tools and equipment, which obviously then renders them not being able to access, the markets that they need to take advantage of, which is why we have actually crafted an intervention that says, having identified one of the critical areas are the actual tools, equipment, and machinery. What then do we do? It is through collaboration that we are trying to fulfill that objective. I must also indicate that as the AIDC, we are focusing on supporting the automotive aftermarket SMMEs. The instruction was very clear from the State of the Province address, which was made by the Honorable Premier Oscar Mabuyane, that the AIDC will implement a program that will support the historically disadvantaged SMMEs in the province. So this is part of what we're doing. And I think reference was made by our CEO that we've actually made strides to reach out to SMMEs in the province, from the north to the south, east to the west. As a result, we now are having a database of SMMEs that have actually responded to our call for expression of interest to participate. We are a public entity. So we needed to have, therefore, a very transparent process of ensuring that as we implement this instruction from the Premier, we have a very transparent process. We advertise these calls for expression of interest in the newspapers. We go out to meet with business associations, and all the responses that actually come through, they then get subjected to a very thorough screening and selection process, which then results in us going out to establish what the needs of these SMMEs are, which is why today we are able to explain or to share with you that we already know that there's capacity or training and development issues that should be designed to respond to SMME needs. We know that there are challenges that relate to access to finance. We know the type of tools, equipment, and machinery that you need. So this is information that we have gathered, which then has led us to identify value-adding partners or stakeholders that should actually help us to achieve these objectives. In a nutshell, this is what we do, and we're very much pleased to see you attending this event, because one of the objectives is obviously for you to network with businesses that are doing similar things as you do. We've actually observed that amongst ourselves there are those that have actually shaped their business to a stage where they are ready, to replicate their business models in other areas. So this event presents, that opportunity. We have invited, exhibitors that we encourage you to go and talk to and transact with in order to make sure that you fulfill some of your business needs. On that note, I wish to thank you very much for your audience. Because
Thank you, Mr. Njigolo. Colleagues, we're very proud of the aftermarket program as as Mr. Njongolo and our CEO have mentioned already. I think the opportunity that we have as the AIDC Eastern Cape is to provide support to the aftermarket industry and see how we can support and encourage the opportunities that do exist in the market. As Mr. Njongolo mentioned, there are a few programs that we are running, but the idea behind the programs is not just a government rhetoric, but rather a really practical solution to the problems and challenges that you are having. There's a team that backs them, and that team is always available and accessible for engagement with respect to the challenges. One of the things that we are doing throughout the day is running a WhatsApp line so that if there are any questions or comments that you'd like to make, please feel free to use that WhatsApp line so that it will go to a centralized WhatsApp device, and we will be able to engage on those matters, specifically as we get towards the panel sessions, etc. So I don't know if there is a slide to put up the number, but the number is 063 180 8633. It's 063 180 8633. So if you have any questions, any comments, please feel free to filter that through to the WhatsApp line, and we will engage on that specific topic or on that theme throughout the day. So one more time, 063 180 8633. So the work that AIDC Eastern Cape does is only made possible by the province and directive of the Premier of the Eastern Cape and financial support from the provincial treasury. We are accountable to Treasury, we are accountable to the province for all the programs that we run, and accountable to you as the citizens. And we have found that Treasury has really championed the cause of the automotive sector, its entire value chain. In the last 3 years, we've seen Treasury step up and say, we are concerned about our citizens, we are concerned about the economy of the Eastern Cape, and we want to see the Eastern Cape thrive with respect to the automotive sector. We have Mr. Ngeba Sitole from Provincial Treasury, who will be focusing on how Treasury promotes SMMEs in the aftermarket sector. So please welcome him to the stage, and he will be sharing from Treasury's perspective. Thank you very much.
Good morning. MEC in absentia, HOD for DDIT in absentia, I think, at this point. HOD Fani, Department of Transport. Mr. Zitumane, the chairperson of AIDC. I think I saw Mr. Wakaba, the CEO of ECDC, Mr. Shengani, the CEO of AIDC, Osingaye, the SMMEs, and all speakers in the program, ladies and gentlemen, Diazibulisela, Molweni. I am standing for Mr. Majeke, the head of Provincial Treasury in the Eastern Cape. I also stand as a part of government responsible for discharging mandate on the support for the small, medium, and micro enterprises in the province. It is indeed an honor to stand before you to discuss matters that pertain to the development of SMMEs, and I can assure you that these are matters that are in the heart of the strategies and intentions for development by the Eastern Cape Provincial Government. In particular, for today, the aftermarket industry. As we navigate the complexities of the modern economy, it is imperative to recognize, I think, the role that the SMMEs play, the contribution that they make, especially on job creation, on developing these economic spaces where they are located, in just making sense of what access to the economic sector is. I think the auto sector, SMMEs, are a good example to demonstrate something that is in the lower or second economy, I think, as we would call, as close as the private economy. I think always as Treasury, we want to see a graduation from SMME to a level of a formalized economy. So we stand here proud and in support of this intervention, I think, by AIDC, by transport, and all those who do play a role. And today, I think, what is our intention also is just to be clear in terms of how we play our role as the provincial treasury and in contribution to the work that AIDC, ECDC, and DDIT do. Then I thought I should start by outlining what we do as the provincial treasury. The Eastern Cape Provincial Treasury operates under the mandate of provincial government, tasked with management of financial resources, implementing sound financial policies. I suppose we always get accused when we emphatic on this role. I suppose that we at times are seen to be looking at finances and how they are managed more than the support itself that finally gets to the people. Just in defense of that, it is important to acknowledge that we're moving from a very low base in terms of the fiscus, and we do these things at times to ensure that the small cake gets distributed evenly and stretched to meet those who really are in the periphery of things. So we must be stringent in how we oversee how government resources are used. We thought that is important just to come and share that, so that as you interact with Mr. Shengani, you understand also where they come from in terms of the fiscal ability to do the things that are in their hearts. Our overarching goal is to promote sustainable economic development and to improve service delivery across the province. As indicated, that one of the primary roles of provincial treasury is financial management. This involves overseeing the province's budget that ensures funds are allocated effectively, and we do monitor the expenditure such that we are able to stand next to the executives of the province and confirm that indeed what they appropriated has gone to what it was meant for. And we approach that, therefore, by being very awake in how budgets are prepared. We are able in that process to reflect on the alignment of government policies with the needs of the people on the ground. So we do express our opinion as Treasury independent of the various policies governments are implementing. And I suppose the AIDC can attest that we've been supporting the development of this sector. And Thabo, I think I need to acknowledge what you said is very important, and now Mr. Njingolo, that at times we take SMMEs as homogeneous group, and I think we are wrong in doing that. And I suppose you're trying to define the auto sector players outside of the homogeneous understanding of things. So that's important. I think that's important. It's something that I would carry as I go back to Treasury and develop the 25-26 budget. That it's something we need to be talking about. Eastern Cape is a province rich in potential. This statement is said a lot of times, probably without a clarity on what it means or how we intend to make good on that potential. I think AIDC is expressing and jumping the queue to be very transparent on how it is tapping into that potential. And if you would have listened to both Mr. Njingolo and Mr. Shengani, they are defining the niche they have identified, what is there, and therefore trying to channel that to the SMMEs within the auto sector. I think in the key strategy for the 7th administration, economic growth and job creation are an overarching goal for this term, and therefore I think this is one of the programs that would ensure that the economy grows in its value chain, as well as that jobs are created. I think Mr. Njingolo at one point was sharing that for each auto sector SMME, we have about 7 jobs full-time. And if then we can maximize, increase the number in value terms, we would have more guaranteed jobs than per establishment. Then the SMMEs are essential, therefore, for our economic resilience, especially for a province like the Eastern Cape. Provincial Treasury supports programs aimed at enhancing access to finance, capacity building, market access for SMMEs. By nurturing these businesses, we are not only creating jobs, but also stimulate local economies. I suppose the CEO of ECDC being here would remember that part of our key strategy is to bring the private sector to work together with government. And I think we have met Standard Bank leadership with other banks to put our intentions forward in support of ECDC on behalf of the SMMEs in this province. And I think ECDC is advancing well in that respect without naming the progress you have made, Mr. Wakab. But I know that as per the cluster, there's good work happening there with the banks. So we're hoping, Standard Bank, that you would go home and encourage your bank. It's not one of those who are in the forefront at this point. And I think by the time Standard Bank thinks of taking this, probably it would be late. The bus is not standing still. We're moving. Finally, we believe that the effectiveness of government programs relies heavily on the capacity of individual departments and their entities. This is very important, and I think this is why EADC is here. We also therefore provide support and training to ensure that government entities can effectively manage their budgets and resources. We understand it is not enough to allocate resources, but we must ensure and monitor as we evaluate outcomes of these programs in order therefore to to ensure that programs are delivered tangibly, we need to be visible on the ground. And I think the SMMEs should have their own platform through EIDC to express where they are not happy, constructively so. Before then diving into the aspects, before really getting into the primary support that we are giving into the industry, I think towards my closing, it is important just to indicate that Ukaya was correct to say the work that they have done is but a start to what we believe that is a potential to this province. And therefore, it is important that probably we'll use this forum to communicate amongst each other, to encourage each other that it is important to join in support of AIDC's work and work with government as partners. And therefore, Chairperson of AIDC, we pledge our support, I suppose. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sotore. I think there's been a few times that we've mentioned and discussed the fact that the aftermarket sector or the aftermarket industry is critical and should not just be diluted into the greater plans of SMME development and support. And it's becoming a critical theme that's sort of being defined as we're moving through. AIDC Eastern Cape is a subsidiary of the Eastern Cape Development Corporation. And we work very closely together to make sure that we do check the box and do make sure not only that we check the box, but that we deliver on supporting SMMEs in the aftermarket space. This event particularly is driven and geared towards us focusing that intention of the province and making sure that the Eastern Cape Development Corporation and us work jointly to make sure that we deliver on the commitments that are made at a provincial level. So thank you very much, Mr. Wakaba, for being here today. We really appreciate your presence. Thank you. Colleagues, we do have a critical stakeholder in the aftermarket space, which is franchising. And I did mention that previously we are engaged with someone that has just recently set up a franchise. And the franchise model does lend itself to being able to access the automotive aftermarket space. There are challenges with regards to engaging with the franchise model, but further to that, it also is an opportunity. And I think it's important for us to have a good understanding of the functioning of the franchise model in South Africa. And as a result, we have invited Ms. Maria De Amaco, who is a franchising expert and chairperson of FASA, who will be presenting now, and she will be doing it virtually, if I understand correctly. And so she will be coming through to our screens. Can I please ask that we do switch the lights off so that visibility can be increased on the screens? So let me hand over to Maria.
As I've been introduced, I'm Maria De Amaco. I
area, yes, we can see your presentation.
Franchisee is the person or legal entity who then duplicates, copies the business system of the franchisor. Just a bit of background, FASA did a survey last year, and we ascertained that franchising constitutes 15% of the GDP. So as you can see, franchising is not a small industry. I am of the view, and I have been saying this for years, that franchising is a way of stimulating the economy and creating jobs. So when we deal with franchising, what does it involve? And as you can see on my presentation, there's just a few things that I want to talk about, and then I will unpack it later in a separate slide. The first thing is the Consumer Protection Act. You can never deal with franchising without discussing the Consumer Protection Act. Disclosure document is the first legal document that comes into play when you deal with franchising. Then you have a franchise agreement, and most people will have heard what a franchise agreement is. Then you have an operations manual, and there are trademarks. So the Consumer Protection Act, there's a section in the Act, which is Section 7, that deals with franchising. There's the regulations that's at the end of the Act that sets out what must be contained in a disclosure document and what must be contained in a franchise agreement. It's important that when the franchisor prepares the disclosure document and the franchise agreement, that they are compliant in terms of the Consumer Protection Act. So the first legal document is the disclosure document. Just a brief background as to where the franchising document is in play of franchising. So if you're a prospective franchisee, you wish to be part of a system, you will communicate with a franchisor. Then there's discussions and negotiations between the franchisor and you as the franchisee. The franchisor will ask questions, will ask you to complete certain documents. At a certain stage in the negotiations, you move to the next level in that the franchisor is happy to have you as a franchisee. You are happy to be part of the franchise business. The franchisor will then give you a disclosure document as well as the franchise agreement. So the disclosure document is a mission statement. It sets out the background information of this business system of the franchisor. It contains financial projections. This is very important. If you're the prospective franchisee, you need to look at the financial statements and see if it is sustainable, if the financial information is sustainable. The disclosure document sets out a list of franchisees. So you as a prospective franchisee are entitled to go and speak to any franchisee, speak to them, find out if they are happy with the franchisor, if the franchisor provides an infrastructure, if they provide assistance when required. So you as a prospective franchisee must do a due diligence on the whole franchised system. In terms of the Consumer Protection Act, once you've received the disclosure document, there has to be a minimum of 14 days before you can sign the franchise agreement. So you've received the disclosure document, you've perused it, you've done your due diligence. 2 weeks have come and gone, you're now ready to sign the franchise agreement. The franchise agreement is the contractual relationship between the franchisor and the franchisee. It contains all financial obligations. There must not be any hidden costs, either in the franchise agreement or in the disclosure document. The franchise agreement sets out the obligations of the franchisor and the franchisee. What is of importance is that there is a cooling off period. This means that once a franchisee has signed the franchise agreement, they've got 14 days, 14 normal days, or 10 working days, and working days is considered Monday to Friday, to decide whether they want to continue with the system. So if on day 14, normal day 14, they decide they don't want to be part of the system, the Consumer Protection Act allows them to cancel, and if they've paid the franchisor a deposit, they will be entitled to a complete refund of whatever deposit the franchisee has paid at that stage. The next document is, once the disclosure document has been provided, once the franchise agreement has been signed, 14 days cooling off period has come and gone, then the franchisor will start training the franchisee and give the franchisee access to the operations manual. So this can be a printed out document material, or it's a document that is online. Many franchisors have presently got operations manual online. So an operations manual is a practical document. It sets out the A to Z on how practically to conduct the business, sets out all the policies and procedures, sets out the corporate identity, and the corporate identity, I touched on it earlier, is your trademarks, the signage, the store. And it sets out the franchisor's intellectual property. The intellectual property is your trademarks, your color scheme, the store layout. The next point to be aware of in franchising is it's important for the franchisor to register their trademarks, their logo, their devices. There are 45 classes with a registrar of trademarks. But it's also important not only to register in the industry applicable to the business, but there's also a class that deals with the franchising class. The franchisor must register in that class as well in order to be protected in the franchising industry. So let us run through the criteria. If you are a franchisor or you intend to be a franchisor, these are pointers that you should take note. The first is ensure that your franchise agreement is compliant with the Consumer Protection Act. I mentioned that earlier, but it's so important that it needs to be repeated. If your franchise agreement is not compliant, then your franchisee can resile. Resile is the legal terminology of cancelling without any legal obligation. With a franchise agreement, there is a cooling off period. If your franchisee deposits any money prior to the cooling off period and your franchisee wishes to cancel, then you as the franchisor have to refund the deposit 100%. You cannot deduct any admin fee, any fees. Why? Because the Consumer Protection Act demands that to be the case. So as a franchisor, it is imperative to provide initial training and then ongoing training. If your franchisee doesn't understand the system, training is extremely important to a successful business. The franchisor should communicate with their franchisee. There should be an open door policy. There needs to be regular communication. If the franchisee is not doing what is expected, then inform the franchisee that this is not how it's done, this is how it should be done. All of that leads towards a successful franchised operation. Now we look at the franchisee. What must the franchisee be aware of? Because a franchise agreement and franchising is quite specialist, I would recommend that you, if you intend to be a franchisee, have your franchise agreement checked by an attorney who understands franchising. Your disclosure document should be checked by an accountant if you don't understand financial projections. Find out from your accountant if the financial projections in the disclosure document is sustainable for this type of business, whatever that business is. Speak to existing franchisees. Find out if they are happy within the business system. Communicate with the franchisor. If you don't understand something or don't know how to do it, speak to the franchisor. It's their duty to make sure that you are on track. If your franchisor has any training or has seminars, it's vital that you attend the training, you attend the seminars, because you need to be up to speed in terms of the business. So basically, in conclusion, when you deal with franchising, there's a process for the franchisor and the franchisee. We've got the Consumer Protection Act, and as I've mentioned, your disclosure document and your franchise agreement must be compliant. If you're a prospective franchisee, please conduct a full due diligence on the business before you proceed to sign. As I mentioned earlier, I'm also the chairperson of FASA. So I would like to just give you a little bit of background of FASA. FASA is the Franchise Association of South Africa. It was established in 1979. So we've been around the block for 45 years. FASA promotes, champions ethical franchising. That was the purpose of why FASA came into being, and we continue to promote ethical franchising. FASA has and continues to play a leading role in the franchising industry. FASA has monthly virtual network sessions. We have monthly newsletters, and there's always newsworthy articles in them. And we have been doing breakfasts throughout South Africa as roadshows to explain to the public more about franchising so that there can be more awareness when it comes to franchising. So if you need to contact me, that is it. I'm not sure if
Yeah,
there
thank
will
you.
be any questions.
Thank you, Maria. Can you hear me? I just want to confirm you can hear me.
I can.
Okay, great.
I-
Maria, what we're going to do is thank you very much for that insightful presentation. I think it potentially has stimulated some questions. Can we have a quick Q&A session with you, if that's all right?
That's fine. Perfect. If you could just read out the question, happy to answer.
We will have a roving mic, so it'll come through the mic system.
Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Colleagues, I'd like to open the floor for a Q&A session. If I can just have a show of hands, if there are any questions that you might have. We have a mic coming through. Aya, thank you. If you can just stand up, please. Tell us the name of your company, your name, and direct the question, please. Thank you.
My name is Bonga. I think my question is based on the franchise, cancelling of the lease with the franchise. I'm actually just in a battle with that. I have cancelled the lease with the franchise, but they've refused to cancel based on mutual cancellation. So I've also written to you guys at FASA, but I haven't got any assistance. So yeah, that's my question. Based on that, they've refused to cancel it, and I have then decided to opt out and do my own thing on the side while I'm still battling it with it.
So maybe can I ask, what is the question that you have?
The question is, what do I do because I've requested for cancellation on mutual agreement, which the contract of the lease says, then they've refused it. So my question is, how do I go about in making sure that I get the cancellation done after they've refused?
All right, great. Thank you, sir. Maria, if you can hand it over to you.
Thank you for your question. When you talk about lease, I'm presuming that you are referring to the franchise agreement. It's unclear from your question whether you're terminating within the 14 days after signing. If you are, you're entitled to do so. If it's after the 14 days, you can't just cancel. That can only be done mutually. So you can't expect your franchisor to terminate. So I don't have sufficient facts to inform you whether you're legally entitled to cancel or not.
Yeah, I think that might require further in-depth sort of communication of information so that the answer can be obtained. So I think we can share the contact details post the event, and the engagement can happen after that. Are there any other questions? Okay, I think that's a wrap. Maria, thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for your presentation and contributing to our event today. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a successful conference.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Colleagues, if we can just hit the lights, that'll be great. Okay, I think we're going to pause the program for now, and we'd like to go to have some tea and coffee and just a break. If you don't mind taking the opportunity to engage with particularly the exhibitions that are around the venue, as well as with each other, there might be opportunities that could be realized while engaging with each other. So it would be a good opportunity to network. I'd like to suggest that we do come back at maybe if we can target 11:15, if that's okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.